The Parkinson's podcast is brought to you by the Davis-Phinney Foundation and brings you the stories, wisdom, and expertise of people living with Parkinson's, care partners, and Parkinson's professionals. In this episode, Foundation Program Manager Beau Boughamer talks with neurologist Vanessa Hinson and Helen, a person with Parkinson's, about the sport that's sweeping the country and the Parkinson's community, pickleball. Dr. Hinson is a professor of neurology and a movement disorder specialist at the Medical University of South Carolina, where she oversees an 8-week introductory pickleball program for people with Parkinson's.
The way that I came to neurology, and specifically Parkinson's, is because I like solving puzzles. And I can tell you that if there's one organ in the body that's complicated, it certainly is the brain, right? For somebody like me who is a clinician and a researcher, I knew there was a long to-do list, and I'm still at it for sure, even though I've done it for 25 years. But also what drew me specifically to Parkinson's disease is that if you take care of a person with Parkinson's disease, you will do that for many years. So you really establish long-lasting relationships. You meet the entire family. Oftentimes we have family meetings in the office, and you get to know people beyond Parkinson's disease, which really gives me great pleasure. Plus, we can make a huge difference. So if somebody with Parkinson's sees a movement disorder specialist, we know we have better outcomes, and it's a pleasure to be part of that team. Now, what draws me to teaming up Parkinson's with sports or exercise is the fact that I'm an avid exerciser myself. I grew up in Germany playing handball. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's dribbling around a court that's a little larger than a basketball court and shooting on a goal like soccer. So that is an amazing sport, but you guys don't do that much in the United States. So I had to regroup. So I came to tennis, and then about 8 years ago, I found that there's another sport, which is pickleball.
My sense is that most people have heard of pickleball at this point, and most people know that it's something like tennis, but a lot of people still have never played. So maybe we should just start with, what is pickleball?
So basically what it is obviously a racket sport. It is played with a solid racket, and it's played with a very yellow plastic ball with holes in it, which slows it down a little bit. And it's played on a smaller court compared to a tennis court. So the pickleball court is about 20 by 44. There's a lot of tennis centers that convert some courts. So if you figure one tennis court, you can make about 4 pickleball courts out of that, if that gives you an idea. The net is just a little bit lower, which is great, but some people still hit the ball in the net. So everything is just sized down a little bit. And the premise then that ends up being played is something of a mixture of tennis, badminton, and ping pong, somewhere in between all those three. Most people play it as doubles, but it may be played as singles as well, which is where kind of the younger people are gravitating towards. But in most recreational settings, you will see it played as a doubles game.
I play, and I hit the net like it's the primary objective of the game. So
we do build a magnet in there so that happens.
So the program that you've developed at Medical University of South Carolina is called Pick It Up for Parkinson's, and that's an 8-week program, as I understand it. How is it set up, and how do people come into the program, and how do they come out of the program?
Well, the main thing to come into the program, you have to have Parkinson's. So, hey, there's a benefit for having Parkinson's, right? So that's your entry ticket. Or here's the other entry ticket. You can be a spouse of somebody having Parkinson's disease or a good friend. So we do take what we call the pickle partners and take them along, because this is supposed to be a sport and a program that brings people together. Since pickleball is the fastest growing sport in this country, I think it makes sense that it would quickly come to mind. In this program, what we want to teach is really teach people to play pickleball safely. Obviously, Parkinson's comes with motor challenges, right? And non-motor challenges, as we already mentioned. So we want to make sure that people learn to play it correctly and to play it in a way to minimize the risk for injury. There is no sport that will be injury-free. Anybody can get injured. I have 4 sons playing soccer, so I've seen, I think, every orthopedic injury that's out there. But there's certain techniques that minimize your risk. And with those put in place, we can enjoy the sport even if we have Parkinson's disease. So that is kind of the reason why we really want to take 8 weeks to teach this progressively, and the sessions built on each other. And let me tell you what the end product is. The end game, so to speak, is the person with Parkinson's who feels confident about their pickleball game and feels like they can participate in any recreational pickleball game that there might be going on in their neighborhood.
Let's talk about the benefits. How do you find that playing pickleball benefits people with Parkinson's, both on the motor side and on the non-motor, the emotional well-being side?
Drawing people out into a sport that per definition is fun and social is already one way to just get people moving. It's that dynamic movement of pickleball that makes a big difference. People will get their heart rate up. They will get that cardio effect that we like. But it's also the quick reaction time. So as you can imagine, on a small court, balls will come to you relatively quickly, right? It makes a lot of sense. If you are closer to your opponent, well, guess what? The ball is going to come back to you faster. So it will teach people with Parkinson's quick reaction time. You do need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. You need to know where your partner is, where the net is, how high the net is. And therefore, it teaches you visual spatial awareness, which is really important. Now, as you will know, with Parkinson's, people often tend to have a stoop posture. With pickleball, we hit a lot of overheads. So we're really straightening up our back. And we are kind of antagonizing that stoop posture that Parkinson's wants to draw the player into. So that's very good. If you think about swinging a paddle and hitting a forehand, you're doing a very big swing, a big motion. And as you know, in many physical therapy programs for Parkinson's disease, the therapist will say, move big. Some of them are even called the big program, right? So here in pickleball, we are teaching and encouraging big swings, which is another important physical feature of how it helps Parkinson's. And then there's the sidestepping and the stepping towards the net. So it will promote safe and confident stepping. It will promote pacing yourself. We want to take large, confident steps towards the net. And that can also help with balance, which we know can be a challenge with Parkinson's. In addition, and you've played the sport, you know that we have to call out the score, right? So if I'm serving, I will call out the score every time I serve. So that can train my voice to project, right? The opponent's on the other side is like, what's that score? And so I need to be able to call that score out. And so that's going to train my voice, which with Parkinson's can become softer. So yelling at the other side of the court what the score is very helpful with that. The other thing is it keeps us on our toes cognitively because we do need to keep score, right? So keeping score, trying to remember where we were before this point was played is a basically cognitive training method, if you will. Pickleball is really a social interaction. So you have a partner. So you communicate with the partner. And then you have the opponent. But in pickleball, even your opponents want to chat with you. It's a very chatty sport in a positive way. And so the atmosphere is very friendly. That really helps as a mood booster. And it also helps as a mood booster to see that you can play it with your pickle person, with your spouse, with your neighbor. So in other words, it levels the playing ground between people with PD and not PD. It really, at the end, doesn't matter.
As much fun as pickleball sounds, if you've never played before, you have to start somewhere. Helen Power, a longtime Californian who now lives in Colorado, was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2017. She began playing pickleball in 2022.
About 4 years ago, everybody was talking about pickleball. And I wanted to know more about it, and I wanted to do it, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. At the time, I was in a running group, and I met a woman through that, and she goes, well, why don't you come play pickleball with us? And so I was just ecstatic, and she showed us how to play pickleball, but most importantly, she suggested and helped us enroll at the community college pickleball instruction classes. And so from there, I learned how to play pickleball, and I met some wonderful people. That would be about 2022. And I began to just chug along playing pickleball as frequently as I could. And it suddenly occurred to me that pickleball was the perfect sport for Parkinson's. Now, I had not told any of my friends that I played pickleball with up until that point that I had Parkinson's. There was no need to. I was playing well enough, and there just wasn't any need to. So I had just a bee in my bonnet about starting a pickleball group in my area. And so I began to ask around and got connected with the Santa Cruz County Pickleball Club, and one thing led to the next. And in 2022, I, with the help of the local Parkinson's group, started a pickleball for PD sessions on Wednesdays from 10 to noon. And that really became a big center. Up until that point, I had not participated with the Parkinson's group of my area. Once we got the pickleball for Parkinson's going, I became very involved in the local group, and that has remained a very important part to me. Even though now I'm in Colorado, I'm still connected with them.
You said, in your view, it's the perfect thing for many people with Parkinson's to be doing. Say more.
It's not that difficult to play. In fact, it's pretty straightforward to play, and it's not that fast. And so, I was not a great athlete. I am not a great athlete, but I'm an enthusiastic athlete. And I was playing great. Now, I had some experience with tennis and racquetball, but many people never did, and they do terrifically. It was straightforward, and the people were right there with you. And I actually think the perfection is the development of community. When you're playing, you're very close to each other, physically close. And so when somebody does something terrific, you can just say, great shot, even if they're on the other team. So it's the community, as well as it's, as I said, relatively easy to play.
Vanessa Hinson, the neurologist who runs a Parkinson's pickleball program in South Carolina, agrees with Helen's assessment. Dr. Hinson adds that there are other advantages, including the fact that these days pickleball courts are just about everywhere.
A lot of the senior living communities, those design communities, 55 plus, I don't know what 55 is called senior, but anyway, they now have integrated pickleball courts. You can play it, by the way, we haven't touched on that, indoor or outdoor, depending on where you live. And that brings me to one more kind of advantage of pickleball. It's usually free to play. And when do you ever have that, right? There's a lot of tennis clubs where you need to pay a lot of membership fees and dues every month. That can get really expensive, but there's so many public pickleball spaces. I just love that concept. We do pre-screen participants for safety. We do not want to take a person with Parkinson's into the program who will be injuring themselves despite our best efforts, right? So we do a balance test, the Berg balance scale, and we want to see a certain score to make sure people are safe. If somebody is, at home already falling multiple times a day or is dependent on a walker, that is probably not a good fit for their exercise program. They probably do much better in a different setting. So to clarify that right away. But in terms of how can we adapt this game? So first of all, for example, in our early classes, this is an 8-week program, and we teach people twice a week for 75 minutes. We first of all do a thorough warm-up for 15 minutes, followed by 60 minutes of instruction. But in the beginning, I think this is really important. We don't want to be rule sticklers. It is not about who gets the serving rights and, this is the kitchen and don't step there and don't step here. The kitchen, by the way, is a zone where you're not supposed to enter in, scored play, but who cares in the beginning? We just want people to develop a feel for the ball.
I think some people will naturally gravitate toward pickleball because it's a sport or because it's an activity that's similar to tennis or badminton or something else they've done before. Do you have an example of someone who was skeptical that pickleball was right for them and then they've ended up really loving it and getting a ton out of it? What does that person look like?
Absolutely. I have one specific person in mind. I won't name her by name, but she is about 73 years of age. She's a woman living with Parkinson's disease, and she was a participant in a clinical trial here at MUSC at my institution. That's how we met. And I told her about pickleball and all the advantages. And she's like, what are you talking about? I've never picked up a paddle in my life. I've never hit a ball in any sports. She came from gymnastics and things like that when she was young. So absolutely not a ball sport person, if I may say. And somehow I talked her into it, right? So she came to the Wellness Center at MUSC and signed up for the Pick It Up program. And let me tell you what, she is our biggest advocate at this point. This woman is fierce. She is hitting the balls hard. She has learned so much. And first of all, she enjoys it so much. And she said it has opened a whole new world for her. She says it's the highlight of her week to come to these classes. And that's just such a joy for me to see that. And for her to have the courage to go in there and say, look, I have never done anything like this before. And now I have Parkinson's and I'm almost 75. And she's done amazingly well.
What Dr. Hinson said about people coming to love pickleball doesn't surprise Helen Power, who plays regularly with friends and other people with Parkinson's in Colorado.
Now, it's not a sweaty sport. You're not going to get your high-level aerobic experience, but you are going to get your hand-to-eye coordination. You're going to get your quick movements back and forth.
How would you, for instance, compare and contrast it to other forms of exercise that you've pursued over the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, it's no question it's been the funnest in terms of the game's fun. Again, coming back to that community and that interaction. I don't quite know how that magic occurs, but it's a huge gift. The rackets are inexpensive. The balls are inexpensive. So it is a game that anybody really can play. And most like YMCAs or city rec programs or Parkinson's programs would provide paddles should that be necessary for an individual. Access should be easy. We just got to get them realizing what fun they're going to have.
Pickleballer Helen Power. We were also joined by Dr. Vanessa Hinson. Thanks to both of them, and thank you for joining us for this episode of the Parkinson's Podcast. For more information about the Davis Phinney Foundation and to learn about educational offerings and community events for people affected by Parkinson's, please visit davisphinneyfoundation.org or dpf.org. This content includes information, insights, and opinions from our Parkinson's community. The views expressed are those of individual participants and do not constitute medical advice. This content is not intended to substitute for the guidance, advice, or recommendations of your personal healthcare providers.